In the frontier days of the American West, the Chuck Wagon was a mobile kitchen. In my Agile Chuck Wagon, I have the Agile, the Lean, the leadership, the programming techniques you need to bring your bland software implementation to life. You bring the project, I'll bring the fire. Let's get cooking. Hello, Chuck here with a quick favor. If you like the Agile Chuck Wagon, I would appreciate if you would go out to your podcast provider, iTunes, Stitcher, whatnot, and give the podcast a favorable review. That will help other people find the podcast and help us grow. Thanks. Hello, today on the Agile Chuck Wagon, I want to talk about a situation that occurred at work because it brought up a topic we haven't discussed before. Our company uses the scaled Agile framework, so our development teams are grouped into release trains. The release trains have a process lead who is called a release train engineer. And this release train engineer told all of the team leadership, which included all the development managers, that from now on, development managers are not to attend daily stand-up. His position is that the Scrum Master of each team should be driving the team's progress, and if they have difficulties with things that are going on the team, they should be escalating to the release train engineer, and then the release train engineer should be escalating to the dev manager. I see some flaws in this approach. I'm not sure in this particular case what this release train engineer or RTE was trying to achieve with this policy. But it begs the larger question of what is the role of a development manager in an Agile organization. When I was looking for this position that I have now, there were a number of job descriptions that were talking about technical leads who also had HR responsibilities, and they had the title manager. I see some strong drawbacks with that approach. Typically, a team lead is going to be the senior software engineer on the team, and one of the roles of a senior engineer is to foster effective design discussions and implementation discussions among the members of the team. As the team lead, they also have the final say about any design decision that's made. That part makes sense. When you combine that with HR responsibilities, though, I find that there are less open discussions about design decisions, and you end up with myopic designs that reflect the opinion of the senior engineer. There isn't enough dissent on the team in order to find a best-of-breed solution to a problem. I think this RTE was concerned that the development managers were having a similar effect when they were attending stand-ups. So, although this didn't occur on my team, I started thinking about how I would rebut this particular argument, and I came up with 4 reasons why a development manager should attend a daily stand-up, or at least have the capability of attending. Before I go into those, I want to clarify that I'm speaking about the ability to attend the stand-up, not the ability to participate as a team member in the stand-up. Those are 2 different things. Development managers, again, at my company, are not members of the team and therefore should not be participating in the daily stand-up unless they are invited to by a team member, and we'll get into that in a moment. The first reason I came up with for attending stand-up is that multiple people on the team are my direct reports. In my position, only the product owner and the QA person report to different managers. We have managers divided by area of specialty. That's a separate sidebar conversation. But the point is that as an Agile software developer, good communication is a required skill, and thus Scrum ceremonies are an important component in me evaluating their performance. I can't evaluate their performance unless I see it firsthand. Another reason is that, again, at our company, development managers are responsible for the delivery of the team, not the Scrum Masters. In order for me to do my job and have that accountability, I need access to all channels of information about my team's progress, and the daily stand-up is a ceremony that is designed to transmit information about the progress of the team. My only alternative would be to pull my Scrum Master aside and have him essentially recount the daily stand-up to me privately. This is a waste of my Scrum Master's time. Another reason is that our development managers typically have been doing Agile software development for years prior to becoming a manager. Most of our Scrum Masters are typically junior engineers or QA analysts who have had no formal Scrum training. This means that they often run into situations in daily stand-up that they haven't encountered before, either in real time if I'm invited to participate that way, or offline, I can coach my Scrum Master using my observations during the daily stand-up. And the fourth and final reason I came up with is that many development managers are experienced developers, and often technical questions or topics come up during the daily stand-up, and this is a place where I take notes and I follow up later. And my fourth reason is one that I want to give credit to my fellow manager, Steve, who brought this up when we were speaking about it. When we attend our daily stand-ups, one, we're showing interest in the work that the team is doing, and the teams tend to appreciate that. But also, if there are impediments that are raised during the stand-up that a manager can help with, the offer of help that I make there, can I help remove that impediment with you, is often welcome. The look on the faces of the people are ones of relief, not of horror that I'm jumping in and interfering with their stand-up. Before we end this podcast, I want to talk about the way that this policy was implemented. This isn't my release train, but I'm one of the more experienced Agilists in the development organization, so I immediately took interest when this was brought to my attention, and I did a little research, and I found that our release train engineer did not have the backing of his manager or of our senior Agile coach. They were both of the opinion that something got lost in translation in the way that this policy was communicated. If I were coaching the RTE on this, I would make two observations. One is that he made this pronouncement in public, and development managers don't report to release train engineers at our company. Release train engineers don't have any authority over the development managers, so they were attempting to make a policy that they couldn't enforce. This is not a recipe for success. What should have happened is that this release train engineer should have talked to his manager and gotten some buy-in from my manager before making this policy announcement. By not doing what in some management circles is referred to as pre-wiring, I learned that term from manager tools, by not getting everybody to agree before announcing this policy, the end result is that it diminished the RTE's authority as a process lead. The other difficulty that I had with this policy is that it's an attempt to manage by exception. When talking to the Agile coach and talking to his manager, who I also have a side relationship with, we're pretty sure that he was trying to solve one or two specific difficulties, but he made a blanket policy that applied to everybody. If you've ever gone to a swimming pool and looked at the long list of rules of things that you are not allowed to do, you can see what management by exception looks like. Management by exception is not effective because although it prohibits certain behaviors, it does not give you any guiding principles. So when new situations arise, it's difficult to know whether something is allowed or not. What I would have rather seen is that the RTEs engage our Agile coach and talk to the development managers instead about having their presence be more effective and conducive to Agile practices in the daily stand-up, rather than just forbidding our presence entirely. To sum this conversation up, I think there's value in having a development manager who is not a member of the team and who is at a higher level in the organizational hierarchy, so there's no contention for senior positions. Except at the very highest levels, I don't think that advancement should be a zero-sum game. I came up with a few reasons why development managers might want to attend stand-up. One is to observe their direct reports' behavior. Another is to get the information they need to be responsible for the team's delivery. Also, they're experienced developers and can get some critical insight into the workings of the team from a technical perspective. And also, they are experienced Agilists and can provide some real-time coaching to Scrum Masters when that's welcomed. We talked about the fact that development managers should be attending stand-up but not participating in stand-up as an active person giving status. We also talked a little bit about the way this policy was rolled out, that this person did not get buy-in from their management before rolling out this policy, and it also was an attempt to manage by exception. I'm very curious what you think of this episode and whether you agree or disagree with this stance. My contact information is in the outro. I look forward to hearing from you. Until then, I wish you luck in your Agile endeavors. It's time to pack up the Agile Chuck Wagon for now. The Agile Chuck Wagon podcast is written, directed, and produced by Chuck Durfee. Chuck is a software development manager and Agile coach in the Denver area. Thanks to Audionautics.com and freesound.org for the backing music and sound effects. You can reach this podcast on Twitter at AgileChuckWagon or by email at chuck@agilechuckwagon.com for comments and episode suggestions. Please also visit our Patreon page to support this podcast and learn about membership benefits. Thank you very much for listening.